All right, so we're diving into Mastery by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
And you had suggested this one. It's a good one.
It is a very dense book, so
Yeah.
we'll see how much we can get through.
Yeah, we're not going to get through the whole thing.
You know.
But I think there's a lot of really great stuff in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the basic premise is, how to achieve mastery in any field.
Right. And it's interesting because he really breaks it down into different phases.
Yeah.
But he also talks about this concept of mentorship
Oh, yeah.
and how crucial that is to the process.
Yeah, he uses the example of Michael Faraday,
Yes.
who started as a lab assistant to Humphrey Davy.
Right. A very famous chemist.
Right, yeah. So he was like right in the thick of things.
He was. And Greene really points out that Faraday wasn't just passively learning techniques.
Right.
He was really trying to absorb Davy's way of thinking,
Right.
like the scientific method in action.
Yeah, that's such a cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
Like he was almost reverse engineering.
Well, the mind of a master chemist.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting is he ended up surpassing his mentor.
Right.
He made all these groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah, and electromagnetism.
Right. So it really challenges the notion that
Yeah.
mentorship is about staying in someone's shadow.
It's not. It's about internalizing the knowledge and the approach of someone who's already been there,
Right.
but then forging your own path.
Yeah. Does that mean we all need to, find that perfect mentor to, guide us?
Not necessarily. And Greene acknowledges that, formal mentorship isn't always possible or accessible.
Right.
He uses the example of Zora Neale Hurston,
Okay.
an incredible writer.
Yeah.
She didn't have a lot of formal education,
Right.
but she basically created her own apprenticeship.
How does she do that?
She read voraciously.
Oh, wow.
She worked as a house cleaner, and she would find books in the houses she was cleaning and just devour them.
Oh, that's so cool.
She was studying the masters of literature, analyzing their styles and their techniques.
Wow. Talk about a self-starter.
Exactly. And so it just shows that mentorship can take many forms,
Right.
but it's that desire to learn,
Yeah.
to absorb the wisdom of those who came before you.
Yeah. And once you have that foundation,
Right.
then you enter what Greene calls the apprenticeship phase.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay. I'm ready. Let's dive in.
It's about transforming yourself.
Hmm.
And he compares it to an anthropologist studying an unfamiliar culture.
What does he mean by that?
Well, think about it. An anthropologist immerses themselves in this new environment,
Okay.
and they're learning the
Yeah.
customs, the social structures,
Yeah.
the unspoken rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're observing without judgment, trying to understand the system from the inside out.
So in this apprenticeship phase, we're becoming anthropologists of our chosen field.
Precisely. You're shifting your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not there for titles or immediate recognition.
Right.
You're there to absorb the language of your field,
Right.
understand its nuances, even the dysfunctional aspects.
And a big part of that is what he calls tacit knowledge.
Yes.
So what is that?
So tacit knowledge is the kind of deep, intuitive understanding that can't really be explicitly taught.
Okay.
It's gained through experience, through trial and error, through years of focused practice.
Okay.
Think of like a master chef.
Yeah.
They can't articulate every subtle adjustment they made to a recipe.
Right.
It's a feeling, an instinct,
Yeah.
honed through countless hours in the kitchen.
So it's like the 10,000 hours thing.
Exactly. And Greene suggests that you need to invest significant time in deliberate practice.
Okay.
Not just mindless repetition, but pushing your boundaries, experimenting, learning from your mistakes.
So you found your mentors, you've immersed yourself, you're putting in the time.
Yes.
What's next?
Then you move into what Greene calls the creative active phase.
Ooh.
This is where you start to apply what you've learned
Okay.
in a creative and innovative way.
I like that.
You've learned the rules, now it's time to break them.
Ooh, strategically, of course.
Of course.
So how does that look?
It means embracing uncertainty and risk.
Okay.
Like explorers venturing into uncharted territory.
Okay.
They have their maps and compasses,
Right.
but they also know that they're going to encounter unforeseen challenges.
Right.
And they have to adapt and improvise and trust their instincts.
So it's not just about following the steps,
Right.
blindly.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is about trusting your own judgment, your own
Yeah.
creative impulses.
Right.
But it's not recklessness.
Right.
It's about combining that knowledge you've acquired
Yeah.
with your own intuition.
And that leads to this concept that he calls negative capability.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
What is that?
It's the ability to be comfortable with uncertainty,
Oh,
with not having all the answer.
that sounds hard.
It is.
Especially these days when everyone wants you to have all the answers right away.
Right.
And like, that's the sign of intelligence.
Right.
But he's saying
He's saying, no, it's the opposite.
it's
You have to be able to sit with the unknown.
to be comfortable with the fact that you don't know everything.
Exactly, because if you're clinging to what you already know,
Right.
how can you discover something truly new?
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Thomas Edison.
Oh, yeah.
He was working on improving the telegraph, and
Yeah.
he noticed this weird musical sound coming from the machine.
Right.
And most people would be like, whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like,
He had the curiosity
yeah, what is that?
and the openness to explore it,
Yeah.
and that led to the phonograph.
That's right.
You know?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's serendipity playing a role in this creator active phase.
You got to be open
Yeah.
to the unexpected.
Absolutely.
So we've gone from absorbing the knowledge to forging our own path to embracing uncertainty.
Right.
Where does this all lead?
To the mastery phase.
What is it?
This is where it all comes together.
Okay.
Years of immersion
Right.
and creative exploration,
Yeah.
culminating in this fusion of intuition and rationality.
So it's not about becoming some kind of mystical guru.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's about reaching a higher level of intelligence
Okay.
where you have an almost instinctive grasp of your field.
Green uses the example of Charles Darwin.
Oh, yeah.
You know, through years of observation,
Yeah.
he was able to connect all these seemingly disparate phenomena to come up with his theory of evolution.
And it's like, it wasn't just a sudden flash of brilliance.
Right.
It was the culmination of years of dedication
Wow.
and observation and this willingness to see connections
Yeah.
that others missed.
And to really understand this idea of mastery in action,
Right.
we're going to delve into the life of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe,
Yes.
a fascinating figure.
A true polymath.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly linear in
No.
his journey.
And that's what makes it so compelling.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Oh.
Okay, so how did Goethe's life kind of exemplify this path?
Well, like a lot of masters,
Yeah,
his early life was marked by this kind of raw creative energy,
right,
almost this untamed force.
right.
And Green refers to this as the demon,
The demon.
that powerful inner drive,
Yeah,
that can fuel both creative genius,
yeah.
but also personal turmoil.
And for Goethe, that manifested as a huge passion.
Yeah, for writing, for art, for life itself.
But it seems like this unchecked energy almost led to his downfall.
Yeah.
There's a story about a near-death experience, right?
Yeah, in his mid-20s,
Okay.
he was consumed by this tumultuous love affair.
Okay.
And, swinging from these ecstatic highs to crushing lows,
Yeah.
neglecting his health,
Right.
and even contemplating suicide.
Wow.
It culminated in this physical collapse,
Okay.
a lung hemorrhage that nearly killed him.
So how did this experience shape his path?
It was a huge turning point.
Yeah.
During this long recovery,
Yeah.
Goethe was forced to confront his own mortality.
Right.
And he began to see this daemon,
Yeah.
this intense creative drive,
Okay.
as a force that needed to be channeled and mastered,
Right.
or it would consume him.
It makes me think about how we often romanticize the idea of the tortured artist.
Right.
Like the idea that suffering somehow fuels creativity.
Yeah, like it's a necessary ingredient.
Right.
But Goethe's story suggests it's not quite that simple.
Right.
Unbridled passion without discipline
Yeah.
can be self-destructive.
Right.
It was only when he started to cultivate discipline and balance
Yeah.
that his true potential began to emerge.
Okay, so what did this shift towards discipline look like in his life?
Well, he immersed himself
Okay.
in this period of intense study and intellectual exploration.
Okay.
He was studying science, philosophy, history.
Wow.
He even took on a government position.
Okay, so he really...
He was like he was
Yeah.
consciously expanding his horizons,
Yeah.
laying the groundwork for something bigger.
So it's kind of like that apprenticeship phase
Yeah.
where you're like immersing yourself in the field,
Exactly.
absorbing the knowledge.
But he was going even further than that.
Okay, how so?
He wasn't just accumulating knowledge.
Yeah.
He was searching for connections,
Right.
for unifying principles,
Okay.
for a deeper understanding of how the world worked.
So he was weaving together this tapestry of knowledge.
Yes, drawing from all these different fields.
Yeah, to create something richer.
Yeah, more complex.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
He was moving beyond simply learning the rules.
Yeah.
He was starting to see the patterns.
The interconnections,
Right.
the underlying structures.
He was starting to develop that inside perspective.
Absolutely.
Like that ability to see the whole.
Right, to grasp the essence of things.
And that's a hallmark of the mastery phase.
It is.
that ability to synthesize all that knowledge and
Like,
experience.
see the forest for the trees.
So after this period of study,
Yeah.
did Gotha reach mastery?
He did,
Okay.
but in a way that defies expectation.
Okay, how so?
After years of dedicated study,
Uh-huh.
he enters this period of remarkable creative output
Right.
in his 50s and 60s.
Hold on, he was hitting his creative peak in
Yeah.
his 50s.
Yeah, what Green calls a second youth.
Wow. That's incredibly inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
It challenges this notion that creativity
Yeah.
has an expiration date.
Right, you peak when you're young.
Exactly.
Okay.
Goschi shows us that with sustained effort
Yeah.
and a willingness to learn and adapt.
You can reach new heights at any age.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, so what made this period so remarkable?
It was like a dam had burst.
Okay.
He produced this torrent of masterpieces,
Like what?
poems, novels, plays, scientific treatises.
Wow.
His most famous work, Faust, took shape during this time.
Okay.
He wasn't confined to one discipline.
Right.
He was weaving together art, science, philosophy.
Wow.
It was the culmination of all those years
Yeah.
of study and experience distilled into this powerful creative force.
It's like he was able to tap into that fusion of intuition and rationality that
Exactly.
Green talks about.
Seeing solutions that others miss.
Right.
Anticipating trends,
Yeah.
making decisions with incredible speed and accuracy.
He wasn't just repeating what he learned.
No, he was innovating,
Yeah.
pushing boundaries,
Right.
forging new
Now
paths.
that's what mastery is all about.
It is.
It's not a static destination.
Right. It's a dynamic process.
Yeah, of continual growth.
And evolution.
It's fascinating to see how his journey really embodies
Yeah.
these different phases of mastery.
Uh-huh.
But I'm curious about the practical implications
Okay.
of this concept of fusing intuition and rationality.
Right.
Like, how does that actually play out
Yeah. That's a great question.
in our everyday lives?
And I think it's something we all grapple with
Yeah.
to some extent.
Right.
We tend to think of intuition and rationality
Yeah.
as separate,
Right.
even opposing forces.
Right.
But in reality, they're complementary
Okay. I'm intrigued.
aspects of our cognitive abilities.
Okay, so how do we get logic
Right.
and gut feeling to
Yeah.
play nicely together?
Well, it's not about forcing them together.
Right.
It's more about understanding their strengths and limitations
Okay.
and finding ways to integrate them effectively.
Okay.
Think of intuition
Yeah.
as this powerful searchlight,
Okay.
scanning the vast landscape of possibilities, highlighting potential paths and solutions.
Right.
And it's often based on years of accumulated experience,
Okay.
patterns and connections that our conscious mind
Right.
might not even be aware of.
So our subconscious is working
Exactly.
in the background.
Yeah. Drawing on all that tacit knowledge,
Right.
and then rationality comes in
Okay.
to refine and shape those intuitive insights,
Yeah.
to test them against the constraints of reality,
Yeah.
and to develop those concrete plans of action.
So it's like having a brilliant architect and a meticulous engineer
Exactly.
working together to
Yeah.
design a masterpiece.
To create something truly special
So it's not about picking one or the other. It's about using both.
to your advantage,
Yeah, to make better decisions.
to achieve those breakthroughs.
But how do we actually cultivate that synergy?
One powerful way is through deep immersion in your field.
Okay.
As we've been talking
Huh.
about.
Yeah.
The more you expose yourself to the nuances,
Yeah.
the patterns, the challenges of your chosen domain,
Right.
the more your intuition will develop.
So it's almost like training a muscle.
It is.
The more you use it,
The stronger it gets.
it's about developing that intuitive feel
Yeah. Almost like a sixth sense.
for your field.
Exactly. And a fascinating example of this is Ignaz Semmelweis,
Ooh.
the Hungarian doctor.
Wasn't there some mystery surrounding women giving birth
Yeah, back then, nobody understood why the mortality rate was so high
in hospitals
in hospitals
compared to?
compared to home births. Yeah.
And Semmelweis was a master of observation,
Okay.
meticulously collecting, data testing, different hypotheses.
And he refused to accept
What prevailing theories.
of the time.
Right, he immersed himself in the problem.
And didn't he have like a flash of insight
He did.
where he really
Like the doctors were carrying something on their hands
right
from the autopsy room.
to the maternity ward?
Exactly. It was this moment of pure intuition,
Wow.
but grounded in years of careful observation and analysis.
So he used his rational mind.
Right, to test his theory.
Yeah.
ultimately proving that hand washing could drastically reduce
The incidence of childbed fever?
childbed fever.
It's a crazy story.
It is.
And an incredible example.
Yeah, of how intuition and rationality
Work together.
to make this breakthrough.
It wasn't one or the other.
Right. It was the synergy.
That made all the difference.
That made all the difference.
And that fusion is what allows
to
masters
see those solutions
Yeah.
that others miss.
to anticipate trends, make decisions.
Yeah, with incredible speed and accuracy.
It's almost like they're operating on a different plane.
Yeah, like they can cut through the noise
Absolutely.
and get to the heart of the matter.
And this brings us back to connecting with your environment.
Okay.
Green emphasizes that masters are deeply attuned
Yeah.
to their surroundings.
Okay.
They're constantly absorbing information,
Right.
making connections that others might miss.
So it's not just about internalizing the knowledge. It's
Right.
about cultivating
Yeah, this relationship
this relationship with your field.
with your craft, with your environment.
A great example of this is Temple Grandin,
Oh, yeah.
the animal scientist.
Who revolutionized the livestock handling facilities.
Her story is amazing.
It really is.
Her unique way of thinking,
Right.
shaped by her autism.
Allowed her to see the world
Yeah.
through the eyes of the animals she was working with.
And that enabled her,
To design these facilities
Well.
that were not only more humane, but also more efficient.
because she understood their needs.
On a deep level.
Yeah.
An intuitive level.
What a great example
It's
of
such a-
embracing your strengths and perspective
Yeah.
to make these huge breakthroughs.
Even those that might be considered unconventional.
Yeah.
Right?
It really challenged
It
it
does.
for
Our
us.
preconceived notions
Yeah.
of what intelligence and
Yeah.
mastery look like.
This has been a really cool deep dive
Yes.
into mastery.
Yeah.
A lot of great stuff.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
From Robert Greene's book.
Absolutely.
So any final thoughts for our listener?
I think the most important takeaway is that we all have this potential for mastery within us.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about genetics or luck or privilege.
Right.
It's about cultivating the right mindset,
Yeah.
finding mentors or sources of inspiration,
Yeah.
immersing ourselves in our chosen field,
Yeah.
and embracing this lifelong journey of learning and growth.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Into mastery.